The room hums with energy as Dwayne's orders spread like wildfire. Specialists work quickly, their hands flying over keyboards as screens fill with data, maps, and movement patterns. The tension is thick, everyone hyper-aware that the steps they take now will determine their survival and their ability to stay ahead of the agencies undoubtedly watching. "We're not just protecting ourselves," Dwayne says, his voice sharp and commanding. "We're fighting to control the future. Get it done." He turns to Jesse, his tone low and resolute. "No more killings, Jesse. I meant it." Jesse's expression softens, a flicker of regret crossing his eyes. "I hear you, Dwayne, but you need to understand. These operatives have been deep in their missions for months, some for years. They're in the dark, operating on old orders. They won't know we've changed direction unless we find them first." Dwayne's jaw clenches, the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. The mission has just become exponentially more complicated. Not only must he neutralize the rogue copies of DALON, but he also has to track down skilled operatives entrenched in their missions. "How many?" Dwayne asks, already bracing himself. Aaron exhales deeply. "At least 5, maybe 13. They're embedded in different locations, each a specialist in their field. Stopping them won't be easy, and they won't come quietly." The room falls silent, every gaze locked on Dwayne. He scans the faces, reading determination on some and apprehension on others. "Then we act," Dwayne says, breaking the silence with authority. "We find them, pull them back, or neutralize the missions before more lives are lost. This is on us now." Aaron steps forward, his expression resolute. "I'll help coordinate. I know their methods. I trained with a few of them." Dwayne nods, his mind racing as he maps out their next moves. "We're running dual missions, neutralize the rogue DALON copies and intercept the operatives before they strike again. Precision and speed are everything. We can't afford a single misstep." The room bursts into action, the hum of coordinated activity filling the air. Specialists review maps, track movements, and finalize plans. The sense of urgency is palpable, the stakes higher than ever. Dwayne turns to Aaron and Jesse, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "Anything else I need to know?" Aaron glances at Jesse before speaking. "These operatives were trained to adapt and act independently. If they think their mission is compromised, they could go rogue." Jesse nods, his face grim. "They won't come back without a fight. We trained them too well for that." Dwayne exhales slowly, the enormity of the situation weighing heavily. "Then we act fast and smart. Aaron, I need a full list of the specialists who were in Anniston, their assignments, and their current locations. We'll deal with them before circling back to the operatives." Aaron pulls out an encrypted tablet, quickly compiling the information. "You'll have everything you need in a minute. Each one has a unique skill set tied to their mission. This isn't going to be easy." Jesse steps forward, carrying a compact black case. "The EMP is ready. It'll be precise, just enough to take out the master network in Anniston without collateral damage." "Good," Dwayne says, his tone firm. "We'll coordinate the EM deployment with the retrieval of the DALON drives. This has to be seamless." Aaron taps furiously on his tablet, pulling up profiles and travel logs. He hands the device to Dwayne, who skims the list. Agent Derek Monroe, NSA, cybersecurity and counterintelligence expert. Dr. Valerie Hughes, master cryptographer and data analyst. Agent Carter Davis, expert in clandestine field operations. Major Samuel Wright, satellite communications and surveillance specialist. Lieutenant Julia Patel, cybersecurity and counter-surveillance operative. Captain Marcus Reynolds, operations planner and communications specialist. Dwayne looks up, his gaze cutting through the tension. "These are the targets. We retrieve those drives and shut down any chance of DALON being weaponized. Jesse, deploy the EMP. Aaron, coordinate the retrieval points." This has to happen simultaneously. Let's move. The team springs into motion, the room buzzing with efficiency. Dwayne scans the profiles again, committing the details to memory. Each agent is a potential obstacle and time is running out. Jesse, leaning against the table, speaks up. "Lieutenant Patel is the closest. She's driving back to Birmingham. We should intercept her first." Aaron nods. "We can track her route and set up a discreet interception point. For the others, we'll need diversions, decoys to keep their attention away from us." "Do it," Dwayne says, his voice hard with determination. This has to be flawless. One mistake and it's over. As the team disperses, Marcus steps forward. I'll handle travel itineraries and communications monitoring. Any deviations, and we'll adjust in real time. Dwayne gives him a curt nod, then turns to Jesse. Map Patel's route. Find her weak points. Aaron, keep eyes on everyone else. This is a high-wire act, and we can't afford to fall. Jesse's smirk fades, replaced by a steely focus. We've come too far to mess this up now. Dwayne takes a deep breath, the enormity of the mission pressing on him. Every second counts, and failure isn't an option. The fate of DALON and possibly countless lives rests on what they do next. Agent Williams, Celeste's voice slides into the room, smooth as velvet but with a sharp edge of authority. Update me. Dwayne exhales slowly, leaning forward, his elbows resting on the sleek console. We're moving forward. The EMP is ready, and Jesse is in position to deploy it in Anniston. We've confirmed the travel plans for all agents carrying copies of DALON. And the personnel? Celeste's tone is clipped, probing for details. Dwayne nods, though she can't see him. Specialists are in position. Jesse will handle the EMP deployment, and Aaron has been instrumental in tracking key targets. Our network is on standby, ready to assist with retrievals. We're keeping it tight and quiet. A pause lingers before Celeste's voice returns, carrying an approving edge. Impressive, Agent Williams. It's clear why they considered you a high-value asset. You think ahead. A flicker of a smile touches Dwayne's lips but doesn't reach his eyes. Hesitation isn't a luxury we can afford, Celeste. Every move counts now. Retrievals? Celeste presses. They're being coordinated, Dwayne replies. Patel will be intercepted last due to her route. Leave Patel alone, Celeste interrupts, her voice sharp and unyielding. She's one of ours. She'll manage herself. A spark of surprise flashes in Dwayne's eyes, but he masks it quickly. Understood. The room feels colder as he processes the unexpected twist. Patel's loyalty shifts the dynamic, another unpredictable variable in an already volatile operation. Give DALON back to Aaron, Celeste continues, her tone softening into a deceptive warmth. Have him pass it to Max for checks. Ensure it's clean before bringing it back online. Dwayne glances toward Aaron, standing across the room with a tense posture, his gaze locked on the monitors. Aaron meets Dwayne's eyes with a subtle nod, acknowledging the directive. I'll handle it, Dwayne says, his mind already calculating the steps to maintain control. Celeste's voice hums again, carrying an undertone of amusement. You're on the cusp of something monumental, Agent Williams. This isn't just survival, it's transformation. What we're building will be a testament to what happens when we take control of our narrative. Don't forget that. Dwayne clenches his jaw, the weight of her words pressing down on him. Control. Change. They're playing a game with stakes higher than anyone could fathom. No more deaths if you can help it, Celeste adds, her voice grave yet firm. Be decisive. This is bigger than any of us. Dwayne inhales deeply, her words lingering in the tense air. Aaron mentioned that multiple operatives are already in the field, in deep cover. If we're going to stop them, it has to be now. A pause follows, and Dwayne imagines Celeste narrowing her eyes, calculating. Then act quickly. Their plans are set to activate by the end of February. Once they're in motion, even I won't be able to pull them back. The weight of her statement ripples through the room, the urgency palpable as every agent moves with precision. One more thing, Celeste's voice drops conspiratorially. What are you doing with Pennyman? He was supposed to be the grand finale. Dwayne shifts his gaze to the live feed of Pennyman's dimly lit cell. The man slouches in a chair, his eyes a mix of fear and defiance. Pennyman isn't just a pawn. He's a trigger, the spark that could ignite everything. Pennyman stays contained, Dwayne says firmly. He's a risk if released, but won't be harmed. We'll do this right or not at all. Celeste's low chuckle carries approval. Careful, Dwayne. That conscience of yours might be what saves you or destroys you. The line clicks off, leaving the room in heavy silence, broken only by the hum of the servers. The shadows stretch longer, the pressure mounting with every passing second. Dwayne turns to Aaron, who has been silently observing. Their eyes meet, a silent understanding passing between them. It's time, Dwayne says, his voice steady. Get DALON to Max. Let's ensure we're ready for what's coming next. Aaron nods sharply, already moving to comply. Dwayne watches as the control room buzzes back to life, every agent working with precision and urgency. The countdown has begun, and there's no turning back now. Already done, boss, Max says, his fingers flying over the keyboard with practiced precision. We've got everything locked in. Anniston's about to go dark. Dwayne's jaw tightens as he grips the console. Execute, he orders, his voice firm and steady. Jesse's hand hovers over the activation device, his fingers trembling for a fraction of a second before pressing down decisively. The EMP detonates with a silent pulse, invisible but devastating. The ripple spreads through the Anniston FBI office, shutting down every electronic system in its path with surgical precision. In the control room, Dwayne and his team watch as the monitors displaying live feeds from the Anniston office dissolve into static. One by one, screens go black, signaling the complete shutdown. Inside the office, chaos erupts. Agents freeze mid-task as computers spark and flicker out. Monitors go dark, telephones disconnect mid-call, and lights flicker before the entire building plunges into silence and shadow. The hum of air conditioning units dies, leaving only the echo of confused voices and shuffling feet in the darkness. What was moments ago a bustling hub of activity now feels like a tomb. Dwayne exhales slowly, his gaze fixed on the now blank monitors in the command center. It's done, he murmurs, his tone resolute, yet heavy with the weight of the decision. Jesse's voice crackles through the comms, calm but laced with finality. Anniston's offline. No files, no communication, clean slate. Dwayne shifts his attention to Max. Keep me updated on any restoration attempts, and get eyes on Gena, she's our next priority. Max nods, already typing furiously. She's closing in on Birmingham, he says, not looking up from his screen. She's headed straight for Patel's copy of DALON. Dwayne lets out a measured breath, the enormity of their actions settling heavily on his shoulders. This was a blow that couldn't be undone, a decisive move that left no room for second thoughts. Jesse, Dwayne says, his tone softening slightly as he speaks into the comms, get clear and head back. We've got a lot more work ahead of us. Yes, sir, Jesse replies, relief faintly audible before the line cuts out. Straightening, Dwayne scans the control room. Agents move with precision, the energy in the space electric with purpose. Screens flash with incoming data, operatives exchange rapid updates, and the hum of coordinated effort fills the air. The operation is far from over, but the first strike has been delivered. The late afternoon of February 13th casts Birmingham, Alabama, in a delicate light. The sky teeters between slate gray and pale blue, clouds breaking sporadically to allow soft sunlight to filter through. The temperature hovers at a brisk 48 degrees, a crisp reminder that winter hasn't fully relinquished its hold, even as spring begins its slow approach. The city moves at a measured pace, residents bundled in coats and scarves, their breath visible in the cool air. The sun, low on the horizon, bathes Birmingham's historic red brick buildings in a warm golden glow, accentuating the charm of a city that carries both resilience and history in its architecture. Wind rustles through the bare branches of oak trees lining the streets, scattering the last remnants of autumn's leaves. The sidewalks, damp from a morning drizzle, reflect the light like shards of broken glass, while the earthy scent of rain lingers faintly in the air. Street vendors offer hot peanuts and roasted chestnuts, their smoky aromas mingling with the subdued chatter of pedestrians. Traffic flows steadily through the downtown streets, the rhythmic hum of tires on wet pavement punctuated by the occasional honk. The distant whistle of a train echoes through the urban sprawl, blending with the city's symphony of sounds. Meanwhile, at the edge of Birmingham, Lieutenant Julia Patel's workplace remains a fortress of subtle power. The three-story facility, outwardly unremarkable, conceals one of the region's most advanced intelligence operations. Its mirrored windows reflect the surrounding industrial landscape, while guards in plain attire patrol its perimeter, their movements deliberate and precise. Inside, the building hums with controlled efficiency. Patel's top-floor workspace is a command center in its own right, outfitted with cutting-edge technology designed for quick decision-making and seamless coordination. Her desk is sleek and meticulously organized, dominated by 3 high-resolution monitors streaming live data and encrypted communications. A holographic projector at the center renders 3D models with a simple command, a tool Patel uses frequently to strategize. Beyond her glass-enclosed office, the operations floor buzzes with activity. Analysts pore over streams of intelligence, their eyes darting between monitors as they decode transmissions and monitor surveillance feeds. Agents move through the space with purpose, their focus unbroken as they prepare for whatever lies ahead. Unbeknownst to Patel, the silence from Anniston signals the beginning of a shift she can't yet foresee. The intricate web of operations she oversees is about to intersect with the unfolding plans of Dwayne and his team. Back in the control center, Dwayne watches the live feeds as they track Patel's movements. His mind is already 2 steps ahead, piecing together the next phase of the operation. The air in the room crackles with urgency, every agent aware that this mission is a turning point, a battle not just for survival, but for control of a narrative that will shape the future. Using her FBI credentials, Gena strides into Patel's workspace, her steps deliberate, though tension coils in her chest. Patel stands at her desk, surrounded by neatly organized files and softly humming monitors. Her expression is sharp, her gaze fixed on Gena with a mix of curiosity and wariness. "Agent Patel," Gena begins, her voice carefully measured, balancing authority and familiarity. "I'm here on behalf of Deputy Director Emily Haden. There's concern that some of our intelligence has been flagged by outside sources. We need to confirm that everything you have is secured, especially the DALON project." Patel's eyes narrow slightly, a flicker of suspicion crossing her face. "Flagged intelligence?" she repeats, her tone slow and deliberate as if testing the weight of Gena's words. "That's news to me. I was under the impression that oversight of DALON was strictly within my jurisdiction." Gena leans casually against a nearby desk, masking her apprehension with a practiced air of ease. "It's purely precautionary," she says with a faint shrug. "You know how things get when the higher-ups are on edge. We can't afford any slip-ups, not with the kind of chaos a breach of DALON's data could unleash." Patel doesn't move, her posture stiff, but her gaze flickers with uncertainty. "I see," she says slowly, her words deliberate. "If this is as serious as you say, I'll need to speak with Emily directly before proceeding. You know the protocol." Gena forces a tight-lipped smile, keeping her voice steady. "I understand, Patel, but this is time-sensitive. The directive was clear. Check and secure immediately. There's no time to wait for confirmations." A tense silence hangs between them. Patel's eyes bore into Gena's, searching for something unspoken. Finally, with a curt nod, Patel straightens. "Very well. Wait here while I retrieve the drive." As Patel steps out of the room, the charged silence becomes almost suffocating. Gena's pulse quickens, but she keeps her expression neutral, her gaze scanning the office for anything unusual. Outside, faint murmurs of conversation mix with the rustling of papers, the atmosphere heavy with an unspoken tension. She adjusts her stance, keeping her movements calm and measured. When Patel returns, she holds a small black thumb drive between her fingers, her expression unreadable. "Here it is," she says coolly, extending the drive toward Gena. "But understand this, everything is documented. If anything goes wrong, this will be traced." Gena accepts the drive with steady hands, offering a professional nod. "Of course. Thank you, Patel. Your cooperation is appreciated." Patel's eyes linger on Gena, a shadow of suspicion darkening her gaze. Without another word, she turns sharply and heads toward her supervisor's office, her movements precise and purposeful. Gena doesn't waste a moment. She walks briskly out of the building, the weight of the drive pressing against her pocket like a physical reminder of the risk she's taken. Reaching her car, she slips inside, locks the doors, and pulls out her laptop. Sliding the drive into the port, she watches as the screen lights up. Her breath catches. Instead of DALON's files, surveillance images, call logs, and incriminating documents flood the display. Emily's name flashes prominently across several files, connecting Gena to the deputy director. Her chest tightens as the realization sinks in. Patel has set her up. With trembling fingers, Gena dials Emily's number. The line connects after 2 rings. "Report," Emily says, her tone clipped and businesslike. "Emily," Gena breathes, the panic evident in her voice. "Patel set me up. The drive is loaded with surveillance, call logs, everything. It's all linked to you. They know I'm your agent." A tense pause follows, the silence heavy with implications. When Emily speaks again, her voice is low and urgent. Anniston has gone dark. We're blind there. Return immediately and check in. Do not engage further. Is that clear? Crystal, Gena replies, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. She ejects the drive and tosses it onto the passenger seat before starting the car. Her mind races as she pulls onto the road, knowing that every move from this point forward could decide everything. Meanwhile, back in Allen, Texas, the flashing lights of squad cars bounce off the houses as neighbors huddle behind curtains, their faces pale with curiosity and fear. Detective Neil Walker steps out of his unmarked vehicle, his boots crunching on the asphalt. He's a tall man, broad-shouldered, with a sharp jawline that's perpetually set in a grim expression. His brown trench coat flutters slightly in the cold breeze as he strides toward the scene, a mixture of authority and exhaustion etched across his features. Walker has seen his share of strange and brutal cases, but nothing about the dispatch report prepared him for the sight before him. The mangled body of Barry Meeks lies atop the crushed SUV, blood pooling around the warped metal. The forensic team is already at work, their cameras flashing as they document the gruesome tableau. "Who's the lead officer here?" Walker asks, his voice low and gravelly, as he approaches the cluster of officers near the tape. Officer Harris, a wiry man with a pale complexion, steps forward, visibly shaken. "That would be me, Detective." Walker sizes him up, noting the nervous tremor in his hands and the way he keeps glancing back at the body. "What do we know so far?" Harris takes a deep breath, fumbling with his notebook. "Victim's name is Barry Meeks, a former officer. Witnesses say he was acting unhinged. He was shirtless, screaming about things crawling on him. We had to restrain him and pepper spray him," Walker finishes, his tone even but sharp. Harris nods. "Yes, sir. He broke free, ran upstairs, and, well, you see the result." Walker's eyes flick to the body again, lingering on the grotesque angles of Meek's limbs and the blood splattered across the windshield. "Anything in his system? Drugs? Alcohol? We won't know until the tox report comes back," Harris replies, shifting uncomfortably. Walker looks around, taking in the scene, the onlookers staring from behind cars, the officers exchanging hushed words, the eerie stillness of the night. Something about this doesn't sit right. Just as he's about to probe further, his phone buzzes in his pocket. He steps away from the scene and answers curtly. "Walker." "Detective, we've got another one," the voice on the other end says, breathless with urgency. "Same symptoms. Former officer. This time, it's over on Birchwood Drive." Walker's stomach tightens. "Are you sure it's the same thing?" "The guy's tearing apart his living room, screaming about shadows trying to kill him. We've got units on the scene, but they're requesting backup." Walker rubs a hand over his face, the stubble on his jaw rasping against his palm. "I'm on my way." Hanging up, he turns back to Harris. "Keep this scene locked down. I want a full workup on everything. Witness statements, photos, videos, whatever you can get, and make sure the body's handled carefully. I'll check in as soon as I can." Without waiting for a reply, Walker strides back to his car, his mind racing. Two former officers displaying the same psychosis within hours of each other. This wasn't coincidence. Something was happening in Allen, and he had a gut feeling this was only the beginning. As he slides into the driver's seat, Detective Walker grips the steering wheel and radios dispatch. "This is Detective Neil Walker. I'm en route to Birchwood Drive. What can you tell me about the location and the individual involved?" The crackling voice on the other end responds promptly. "Birchwood Drive residence belongs to a Roger Cale, also a former officer with the department. Left the force 2 years ago. He was on the team involved in the Darwin Potts 3 incident." Walker exhales sharply. His grip on the wheel tightens. Another name from the same cursed case. "Anything on his background? Mental health issues? Prior disturbances?" "Negative, Detective. Clean record, no prior calls to the residence. Neighbors reported erratic behavior about 30 minutes ago. Officers arrived to find him screaming and breaking furniture. Current status unknown." "Understood. Keep me updated. I'll be there in 5. Walker disconnects the call, his mind spinning. Two men, both linked to the Darwin Potts case, both exhibiting the same unexplainable psychosis. A connection is forming, and it's as unsettling as it is undeniable. At the Birchwood Drive residence, the scene is pure bedlam. The front yard is a mess of shattered glass and splintered wood, remnants of what was once the living room window and coffee table. Inside, Roger Cale, a burly man in his late 40s, is shirtless and pacing like a caged animal, his breath coming in ragged gasps. His face is streaked with sweat and smeared with blood from cuts he inflicted on himself as he clawed at his arms and chest. "They're here," he shouts, his voice cracking. "They're in the walls, they're everywhere. You can't stop them." Two officers, guns drawn but held low, inch closer, trying to calm him. "Roger, listen to us," one of them says, his voice firm but steady. "We're not here to hurt you. Let us help." "Help?" Cale whirls around, his bloodshot eyes narrowing. "You're with them, aren't you? You brought them here." He lunges forward, and the officers spring into action. One tackles him low, aiming for his legs, while the other moves to secure his upper body. Cale fights with inhuman strength, thrashing and kicking, his screams guttural and feral. "Get off me!" he bellows, twisting and bucking. "I'll kill you! I'll kill all of you!" After a brutal struggle, they manage to cuff him, forcing him onto his stomach. He writhes against the restraints, his eyes darting wildly around the room. "They're in my skin," he howls. "Get them out! Get them out!" The lead officer looks at his partner, who nods grimly. There's no reasoning with him in this state. One of them pulls out a canister of pepper spray, shaking it as he positions himself above Cale. "Roger, stop resisting," the officer shouts. "This is your last warning." Cale only thrashes harder, his screams rising in pitch. The officer hesitates for a fraction of a second before unleashing a stream of the chemical mist directly into Cale's face. The reaction is explosive. Cale lets out a shriek so raw it seems to shake the walls. His body convulses, his muscles straining against the cuffs as though he's trying to break free through sheer force. His eyes, already wide with madness, roll back into his head, then snap forward, locking on something invisible in the corner of the room. "They're crawling inside me," he screams, his voice cracking with terror. "I can't breathe! I can't breathe!" He slams his head into the floor once, twice, leaving smears of blood on the hardwood. The officers, stunned, try to hold him still, but his movements become even more erratic. He kicks out, his feet striking the edge of a shattered chair and sending splinters flying. Suddenly he goes still, his chest heaving as he whispers, "They're coming. They're here." His head snaps toward the officers, and for a moment his expression is one of pure, animalistic rage. What happens next is unclear, but one thing is certain. Roger Cale, like Barry Meeks, is losing his battle with something far more sinister than madness. The officers are still trying to restrain Roger Cale when, without warning, his body erupts in a violent surge of energy. With a guttural roar, he twists his body and bucks wildly, throwing both officers off him as though they weigh nothing. One crashes into the overturned couch, the other slamming into the wall with a grunt, their grips on him lost in the chaos. Cale scrambles to his knees, his breath coming in ragged, animalistic gasps. His eyes are wild, darting to every shadow in the room, pupils blown wide with terror. His face is a grotesque mask of pain and fury, streaked with sweat, blood, and the chemical sheen of pepper spray. "They're here!" he screams, his voice raw and guttural. "They're inside! They're inside me!" Before the officers can react, he hurls himself face first onto the hardwood floor with a sickening thud. Blood spatters across the ground, pooling around his forehead. He rises slightly, dazed but relentless, and slams his head down again, harder this time, leaving a dent in the wood and a spray of crimson streaks. "Stop!" one of the officers yells, crawling toward him. "Cale, stop! You're going to kill yourself!" But Cale doesn't hear them. His mind is consumed by the imaginary horrors he believes are devouring him from the inside. He lifts his head once more, the veins in his neck bulging, and crashes it down with such force that the sound echoes through the house like a gunshot. Blood and fragments of bone spatter outward, painting the floor and nearby furniture in grisly streaks of red. Cale screams again, a sound so piercing it rattles the officer's nerves, and lifts his head one final time. "They're here!" He shrieks, his voice breaking into a high-pitched wail. With one last savage motion, he slams his skull into the floor. The sound is horrific, a wet, crunching pop. His head splits open like an overripe melon, releasing a torrent of blood and brain matter that sprays outward in a gruesome explosion. The viscous gore coats the room, pooling around his collapsed body. His limbs jerk spasmodically for a moment, then fall still, his lifeless eyes staring blankly into the distance. The officers, now spattered with Cale's blood and remains, sit in stunned silence, their faces pale with shock. One retches into the corner, clutching his stomach, while the other stares at the horrifying scene, his hands trembling. The air is thick with the metallic tang of blood, the acrid residue of pepper spray, and the unshakable sense that something far darker than madness has gripped this town. Roger Cale is dead, but his final words linger in the room like a curse. "They're here,"